Well, you're listening to the Vitalmoments podcast and wrap up of Sunday morning conversations at Vitalpoint Church. My name is David. It's a Monday morning. It's beautiful outside after a week of really crappy weather in Ontario. We've got some nice sunshine. Ron, how are you doing this morning?
I'm good.
Yeah,
I think most
just
of me.
good. Just good. Well, you just came from the gym, so you're probably just praying for God's strength to be replenished inside of you right now.
Yeah, it was definitely a workout, that's for sure.
That's awesome.
That's why if you're watching this, that's why I'm so red. It was a late class and
nice.
I rushed here and have to do the podcast. So we better get at it because we want to be quick today.
Yeah, we're talking about divorce, marriage, and remarriage. We're in a series right now called Jesus Said What? And we're looking at all of the moments where Jesus brings a lot of good correction, healthy correction, and fulfills God's purpose for his people. And really, if you are someone that's new to the faith, you might actually say, whoa, Jesus said what here? And people that are even like Christians for a really long time that haven't talked about these conversations in a long time or haven't really chewed on them for a bit, it really does have us scratching our heads like, man, Jesus said some pretty crazy things. And we're trying to lean into it with truth and love and grace and really to bring correction and alignment to our lives. And this one's an interesting marriage, divorce, remarriage. And I think what's beautiful is if someone was to be sitting in a space on a Sunday morning or watching online, I would confidently say that a lot of people would say, wow, that was handled with a lot of grace, no shame or guilt. And like, I give you a round of applause, like seriously, because I asked the question before we even started recording the message or even on Sunday saying like, how is he going to handle this one?
Yeah. Well, and I think what people need to realize is that that talk, yes, I wrote it, but we put it through like people look at it, read it over. I had you and Amy, our other teaching team member, in the room while we recorded it for Exeter, Clinton, and online. So I was confident that we were handling this topic with grace and understanding of the individuals that might be listening to it. And, you know, when we look at permissible divorce and permissible remarriage, I mean, there's a wide range of understanding of this where some would be hardcore anti-divorce, there's no room for remarriage, and then there's the other side where it's like, oh, we're just not happy, so we're going to divorce. And so what I believe we tried to do through Jesus' teaching in Matthew 5 is reestablishing the awe and the wonder of marriage beyond just the two physical people coming together, that it's a deeply spiritual union between a husband and wife. And I think that was something that Jesus was trying to reestablish, because when you look at the context of Matthew 5 and even Matthew 19, which we dipped into as well, is that, you know, the cultural norm was to view marriage as disposable. And we really tried to examine the reality of, and I think that Jesus does these extreme statements to, even when he says, divorcing, except for, sexual immorality, and then anyone who marries is committing adultery. You can couple Matthew 5 and 19 to see that. And what I think he's trying to do is to really drive home the point of, don't take marriage lightly. Don't go into marriage thinking that you can get out if it just doesn't work out. Or
I love your analogy. What you brought, like when you say that again, is the don't treat it like Velcro. You can't just pull it apart like, oh, we're done.
Yep. We've got and with all sensitivity and understanding in the cultural time that we live in, marriage is more like Velcro. It's not. We are less inclined to, generally speaking, lean into the tough seasons, to have the tough conversations, to get help that we need. And I believe it was important that we also help. And I had some friends in the room in Poplar Hill that really that have walked the path of abuse in marriage on the receiving end of it. And the person was very grateful that when I said that if someone in a marriage relationship has broken the covenant love of marriage by abuse of any kind, they've lost the right of being with, for, and unto. And
Mm.
that person felt very much that they that they were acknowledged, that they were on the receiving end of this, because oftentimes there's this strange guilt and heaviness that comes
Yeah.
from someone who's received abuse. And in this topic, obviously, and David, as we know, I mean, you and I talk quite a bit about this, going into a topic like this with a wide range of perspective on marriage,
Mm-hmm.
and recognizing that Jesus was reestablishing the divine order in marriage from Genesis chapter 1 and 2. And then also in Matthew 19, tipping his hat to the reality of Genesis 3, where it talks about the hardness of the heart. And so we worked hard in this 25, 30-minute message on divorce, remarriage, marriage, to establish the groundwork for God's perspective of
Mm-hmm.
marriage between husband and wife, and then working hard at just saying we need to do whatever we can to protect it, but also acknowledging that there's going to be times when maybe one or both have broken that covenant love dynamic that we see and from God's covenant love towards us. And so it was, yeah, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and it's interesting. We didn't dip into this. Paul talks about it in Corinthians 7, where he talks about
Mm.
marriage from a different perspective. And this is the acknowledgement, David. I mean, we could never ever imagine covering all the dynamics of this in one message.
Yeah.
So uh to I believe setting the tone, the expectation of the conversation, and then also to make sure that we keep grace and truth, like Jesus is full of grace and truth in John 1:14, is that we make sure that we do that as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel that we did a very healthy job of creating a space for conversation.
And I think right when you say that, we created a space for conversation. Um, a big
Mhm.
takeaway from me was the fact that you lean towards community through this.
Yeah, yeah.
And for me, what I've noticed as I've now been married for 5 years, when anything kind of goes wrong in my marriage, like say my wife and I were having a healthy argument or an unhealthy argument,
Mhm.
probably lean towards the unhealthy argument. There's this piece of us where we feel like we don't want to tell anyone.
Sure.
We've got to keep it to ourselves. And I believe, and I'm starting to understand, I think that's the work of the enemy of this world, where he's saying, you're all alone. Don't allow anyone else into this space with you guys. Where he's just like, don't like, and for me, it's just like, I think that's the opposite of what we need to do when there's unhealthy things happening in marriage or relationships, is don't retreat back to just deal with it
Mhm.
on yourself. You leaned quite beautifully into the conversation yesterday of walk through these things with people.
Yeah. Yeah, and I believe that a critical piece to journeying the path of divorce and remarriage is
Mm-hmm.
done within the context of in a faith community,
Mm-hmm.
is wise counsel and mature leadership. So mature leadership can walk with the individuals with um, a solid base of scriptural wisdom that can do this in community, right? And it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like I said, when if you came to me and said, "Yeah, we're getting a divorce because we're not happy," that's not grounds for divorce. I'm sorry. That's just, I'm not apologizing. That's just a phrase, but
Yeah, yeah.
that's not the grounds for divorce. Or, oh, we've drifted apart. It's not the grounds for divorce. It's, you have to be very cautious. So walking that in community and in wise leadership within the context of the church is super helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if we lean into that enough um, in our Western church mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah.
When you think of this conversation and
Hmm.
topic,
Hmm.
like what's your hope for a connect group right now? Listening to this, going to discuss this. Like what would your heart, if you're sitting in the room with them and you could say,
Yeah.
"Hey, let's chat about this." What would you want them to chat about?
I'd want them to chat about how a biblical truth like this can be wrapped and couched in grace, making sure that if there's those in the group that are walking this path or have walked this path, that they don't feel condemnation, that they don't
Mm,
feel judged, but that they can, like we've been talking about, a healthy church is a confessional church.
mhm,
And I think that that's another piece of this, David, where in conversation and connect group is the holding each other with an open hand that allows room for everyone to express what they think, what they feel, but also for a connect group leader with the wisdom to draw back to the scriptures. I'm by no means advocating our feelings are the pinnacle of truth. That's not. I mean, we all know that our feelings are funky and can get us in trouble at times. But I believe it's important to in a connect group is to, like, I think there's going to be some connect groups this week that are going to have some really deep, heartfelt conversations that simply need to happen. And I believe where there will be restoration within people's souls, because this opened up for some. I talked to some after the service in Poplar Hill. This opened up things in their life from their path of divorce that they've never dealt with, right?
mhm.
And so that's going to cause them to really take a hard look at that experience. And so one person said, I've tried to just push it away. This made me feel like I better start dealing with some of
Wow.
the inner pain. And so I thought that was really good. So
Mhm.
that's critical for us in our connect groups.
No, and I think that's good because we've got connect groups that we've got men's groups, we've got women's groups, we've got mixed groups, we've got when I
Yeah.
say mixed, it's just like we've got married couples hanging it with single people, people that have been divorced.
Yeah.
So couching that in love and grace and allowing space for people to say like, hey, this is what I've experienced. I've watched my parents maybe go through it. I don't want to go through it myself.
Yeah.
So it's that being that family and that core group of people that you're doing life with to understand like this is the space where we wrestle
Hmm.
and we pray for each other's hearts and we fight for
Hmm.
each other's hearts.
Look at the last part of our vision statement, right? Is the last part of our vision statement is twofold. One is explore and grow in our knowledge of Jesus, and
And
commitment to His
commitment.
church. And part of that commitment to the church is not, we're not talking about committed to the church and Sunday attendance.
Mm,
We're talking about committed to the church as the body of Christ, which therefore means as a disciple of Jesus, you can't ignore community. And so I believe that part of our responsibility as communicators and church leadership is to make sure that people realize that the commitment to the community, to the church, is those times where you're entering into tough space and loving and being kind to one another. So yeah.
amazing. Such a good topic.
Yeah.
And not even topic, a truth that Jesus speaks so much life into because like you chatted about in the conversation, we can wrap up here. Like there's a divine marriage between Christ as the groom and the church being the bride.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he fights so hard for his bride
Yep.
and fights for the heart. And we are to respond to that fight and that love and that grace. And that's what our marriages need. I love that you said it, align it in your talk. Like, what would it look like for you to show your spouse, the one that you're married to, that you're just for them,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Don't be a roommate where it's just like, yep, we kind of check in with one another, like, oh, the calendar is
Yeah.
good. No, how do you show your spouse, the one that you choose to love,
Yeah. Yeah.
that you're
I'm
for them?
for you. Yeah.
Hmm.
And even more important, I'm for the union of marriage, right?
Yeah. Huh.
Right.
So
So
good.
Yep.
Okay.
We don't have any questions this week. Well, we got an
Oh,
email from.
you left our anonymous questionnaire person speechless.
I
No,
don't know if it was
no, it
speechless,
wasn't
but
speechless.
she
Yeah,
said no questions this week.
yeah.
So
Yeah. And hey, if you're in a Connect group listening, watching, maybe sitting together watching this, we're praying for you. And we're grateful that you are committing yourself to Jesus and his church outside of a Sunday gathering and really wrestling with these in community. So that's all for me, Ron. All for you.
yeah, I know this will be kind of a timestamp thing, but end of June of this year, we got our VPC Family Day. If people want to be baptized, dedicate babies,
Yeah.
yeah,
June 25th.
it's happening.
It's going to
All
be a
all
party.
all sites coming together
Yeah.
for a big service, baptism,
Mhm.
barbecue, blow up games and toys all over the place. It's going to be unbelievable. It's going to be a great day.
It
Book the
is really,
day.
I can't
Book the
wait.
day.
It's gonna be cool. Okay.
What's that
Thanks, everyone.
date? June what?
June 25th.
June
25th.
25th. All right.
2
Peace.
5. Peace out.